my screen, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay. So till now, particularly in last couple of lectures, we have really emphasized on the fact that while writing codes, it's very important to utilize the principle of locality and the spatial locality and the temporal locality. And we also learned, I mean, how significant effects these localities have actually. We looked into the blocked matrix multiplication, which basically utilizes this principle. And to really utilize this principle, we also need to remember this, that memory accesses on blocks of data instead of individual data items. So that's a very important thing. And these are called catch blocks. So we also discussed about catch hits and misses. Okay, so today we are going to look into discussed about catch hits and misses. Okay, so today we are going to look into another important aspect, which is primarily related to the development of parallel algorithms. So the first question which comes into mind is when two statements can be executed in parallel. Okay. Now it's fine. Like we in the very beginning we discussed that to develop a parallel code, first we need to decompose the whole work into several subtasks. But now let's look into I mean in the further details in that direction. So let's say just we have simply two statements in your code, statement 1 and statement 2, which can be any statement. And the first decision which we have to make is like, when can I execute these two statements parallelly on two different processors? So that's the wishful thinking, that we wish to execute these statements independently, so they should not depend on each other. That is, no control over the order of execution between processors. So I want that statement 1 goes into processor 1 and statement 2 goes into processor 2, or I can say statement 1 goes into processor 2 and statement 2 is being executed by processor 1. So that's what we really need to do, I mean, in parallel programming. Now the question is that depends on certain things. Only we can do that only and only if those requirements are fulfilled. So the first requirement is their order of execution should not matter. Okay. Now let's say whether I do statement 2 first or statement 1 subsequently, or statement 1 first and then statement 2, these two should be equivalent actually. These two, if these two are equivalent, then their order actually does not matter, in what order I do that, and then I can easily give them to two different processors. So statement 2 can be given to some processor, statement 1 can be given to some other processor. By processor I mean core here also, two different cores. Now let's look into the case 1. So it is case 1 has simply two statements, a equal to 1 and b equal to 2. So can these statements be given to two different cores?
Yes, sir.
It can be given. Why it can be given?
It's not
Because
dependent. Both are independent.
Both are.
exactly, that's perfect. So this can be executed in parallel. I mean, there is no dependence as such. A equal to 1, b equal to 2. Now what about this one? A equal to 1, b is equal to a.
Not, no, no. It
Yeah.
cannot be.
Yes. Now here we can see there is dependence, but the interesting thing is this can be removed actually. So if you just look into this, yes, I mean, you first has to execute a equal to 1 and then b equal to a. But if I know a is equal to 1, I can do something like b equal to 1. I can change the statement a little bit, and then this can be given to two different processes. But yes, this is not straightforward. Now, what about case 3? B is equal to a and a is equal to 1. Okay. So this cannot be.
Yes, both are not
Yeah.
independent.
Yes, it cannot be. You cannot remove the dependence here. I mean, so b, because b is equal to 1 and a is equal to b is equal to a and a is equal to 1. So first you must complete the first statement, and then only you can do the second statement. So it cannot be removed also. So there is a dependency. Similarly, if you look into this, a equal to 2 and a equal to 1, so there also, I mean, there is it depends. The order matters actually. So the order of execution matters. So these two statements cannot be given to two different codes. So this also is not possible. Similarly, here, if you look into a equal to fy and b is equal to a, again the same thing. I mean, there exists some kind of dependence. So you exactly don't know what. No, this is clear. I mean, a equal to fy, b is equal to a. So there is dependence. First, a has to be updated, and then only you can update b. Okay. So from these simple cases, the picture is clear that it leads a very deep understanding of dependence. It requires a some skills. I mean, how to remove dependencies, and also the skill to really figure out. I mean, whether the dependence is present or not. Because if you do not remove dependence and then you start writing your code, then you will get some wrong results. So we'll look into the details of everything. So the first thing we need to understand is typically. So still now I'm just concentrating on statements. Okay. So you can see in this slide there is no loop now. Okay. So first we understand this, and then gradually we'll go into the loops actually. So let's just think about statements. That I have four statements, and then I really want to understand what are dependence, what are the important types of dependencies. So the first dependence is called flow dependence or true dependence. Why true? Because it's almost impossible to remove such dependencies. Okay, so now let's understand what is flow dependence. So in this case, what happens? There is a statement I which precedes j. Okay, so there is a statement I. So let's say there is a statement 1 which precedes 2. So that is like I is equal to 1 and j is equal to 2. Okay, so that's the first part. Statement I precedes j, and I computes a value that j uses. Okay, so for example, there is a statement 1 which precedes j, which is like 2, and then I computes a value, so x equal to 1, that j uses. So second statement uses x actually. So now can you tell me in which of these statements there is flow dependence, between which of those statements? So there are four statements, 1, 2, 3, 4. So which of these statements has flow dependence? So one we have already identified. So there is a flow dependence between 1 and 2. Once again I will explain. So you can see statement I precedes j, so that is satisfied. Statement 1 precedes statement 2, so the first condition is satisfied. I computes a value, so that is x equal to 1. I computes a value that j uses. So 2 uses x. So yes, there is a true dependence here. Any other combinations where this is present?
2 and 4,
4
sir.
depends on 2.
Yes, exactly. 2 and 4. Again, you can see 2 and 4. So 2 precedes 4 and 2 computes a value. So that is y, which is being used by 4, which is j. So again, yes. So these two places we can see there is true dependence. Any other combinations? Not really. Yes. So these are the two occasions here where there is a true dependence. Now let's look into anti-dependence. So in this anti-dependence, again, this statement is similar to the previous one. That statement I precedes j, so that part is similar. What is changing here is that I uses a value. It is not I computes a value. It is I uses a value that j computes. So it's inverse actually. Okay. Now can you identify where is this anti-dependence present?
So 2 to 1.
2 to 1. No, the first statement is statement I precedes j. So these statements are in order 1, 2, 3, 4. So the first has to be satisfied.
2 and 3.
2 and 3, yes, 2 and 3 there is 2 and 3. So the first condition is statement I precedes j. So 2 precedes 3, and
So 1
I
and 3.
uses
1 and 3.
1 and 3. Okay, so let us just look into the 2 and 3, and then we'll see the 1 and 3. So here 2 uses a value. So yes, 2 is using x, and which is being computed by j, which is 3 here. So yes, there is definitely a dependence between 2 and 3. Now let's look into 1 and 3. No, so here it's not really anti-dependence, because uh, 1 is not using something which is being computed by 3. You got it, right?
2 and 4, sir.
2 and 4. 2 and 4. Okay. So 2 uses a value. So 2 uses x, yes, and which j computes. Yes, exactly. So that is 2 and 4 is also possible. Yes. Yeah. Now let's look into the output dependence. Then in the output dependence, again the same. The first part is same. So statement I precedes j, and I computes a value that j also computes. So here it is computes in both the cases. Now can you identify where is such dependence present?
1 and 3.
1 and
So
3,
3 and
yes,
4.
1 and 3,
3 and
okay. 3 and 4, yeah. So both are actually computing. So statement I precedes j, and I computes the value that j also computes. And the last one is called input dependence, which is again the first part is same. Statement I precedes j, and I uses a value that j also uses. So where is that present?
3 and 4.
3 and 4, yes, 3 and 4. 3 and 4. So you can see that I uses a value that j also uses, 3 and 4. Okay. So that's the most basic understanding of depend. What are the kinds of dependence? And one thing to remember, the first one is very, very critical actually, what we call true dependence. Okay. Now now let's go to the next part. Let us summarize. So if we say dependence flows from I to j, so then I is source and j is sink. Okay, so if you say this is true for the flow dependence, so the dependence is flowing from I to j. So in that case, I is source and j is sink. Now, as we already discussed, flow dependence is true dependence, and other dependencies can be eliminated by renaming. So there are techniques to remove other dependencies, but it's very difficult to remove true dependence. We can also look into these dependencies by in the form of a graph, which we'll do gradually in some of the future lectures. So here what happens, the nodes are the statements and the directed edges are dependence relays. I will come to this part later actually, what we call data dependency graph or a task dependency graph. Okay. Now let's come to loop actually. Now let's look into the loop. So here you have a loop for I is equal to 1 to n and j equal to 2 to m. And then you have a statement like this: bij, something is here, and then bi j minus 1. So what do you think about this? Is there a dependence? So should I really do it sequentially, or I mean they can be executed in parallel? So I'm reframing the question. So this loop should be executed sequentially, or it can be done parallel?
Sir, in sequentially, because
Sequentially.
sequentially.
Yeah. Okay.
So,
So
inner loop can be like for loop with J can be done parallelly, like for different eyes.
which one can be done parallelly?
Like Bij is equal to something plus Bij minus 1, and
Hmm.
B plus 1J is equal to something plus Bi plus 1J minus 1. Like both are in the different, like same
Yes.
loop, but can be done parallelly.
So once again, I will reframe the question: which loop can be executed in parallelly and which must be done sequentially?
Inner loop
Outer
can be done sequentially, or outer loop can be done parallelly.
Right. So that's the point. So the first identification is that if I quickly look into that, it might look like it cannot be done parallelly. But if you look at very carefully, then you will find that the iterations. Let me write it down. Iterations of the loop J, iterations of the loop J, so that is the inner one, can I mean must be done sequentially. That has to be done sequentially because there is the dependence. Must be done sequentially. However, the iterations of the loop I can be done parallelly, can be executed in parallel. Okay, so this part is clear. So now we can see that when we have several loops, then the situation is even more difficult. So now let's get into the loops gradually. So in case of loops, there are two kinds of dependence. One is called loop independent dependence, and the second is called loop carried dependence. Now, if you look into this statement, so suppose this is within a loop, AI is equal to BI plus C and DI is equal to AI. So here you can see there is clearly a dependence between these two statements, but the dependence flows within the same iteration. So if you are in iteration one, so dependence is confined in iteration one. It does not go out of, I mean, it does not go to some other iterations. This part is clear that in this case, dependence flows within the same iteration. This part is clear to all of you?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
So, yeah. So this is called loop independent dependence, and here the dependence distance is 0 because uh, the dependence is within the same iteration. However, if you look into this case, now you can see the dependence flows from one iteration to the next iteration. Here you can see I minus 1, and here you can see I here. So in this case, what is happening is the dependence is not confined within the same iteration. It actually flows from one iteration to the next iteration, and which are very challenging to figure out and subsequently remove those. So these are called loop carried dependence. Here the dependence distance is 1. So the dependence distance can be something. It can be 1000 also. So you have to be very careful. I mean, what is the dependence distance, and if there is a dependence distance, we cannot actually run it in parallel so easy unless we remove it. So this part is clear. These two things are clear: loop independent dependence and loop carried dependence.
Yes.
Hello, sir.
Yes.
Sir, if all are the same variables, means all are I only, then we can say that it is loop independent. Is it like that?
Which one?
Means it does not depend past or
No, here actually if you look
plus
into,
Ci
so if
and Di equal to.
yeah, if I put a for I is equal to something 1 to n, okay, now here you can see that there is AI here and then there is AI here, right?
Yes,
Now
sir.
yeah, so now what is happens, like let's say I is equal to 1 case is I is equal to 1, another case is I equal to 2, I case equal to 3. So in this case what I can do is, like, I can give I is equal to 1 to say core 1, I can give I is equal to 2 to core 2. I can give I is equal to 3 is equal to core 3. Reason is simple. The dependence does not, there is a dependence, but it is within the same iteration. It does not go out of that iteration. You got it, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So if I break it down, it will look something like this. I mean, A1 is equal to B1 plus C1, and D1 is equal to A1. So that's fine. I have to do it together. That's fine. I mean, there is a dependence, but the point is A2, which is B2 plus C2, and then there is this D2, which is equal to A2. Now you can see there is no connection between these two, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So that means this part can be given to one processor, one core. This part can be given to another thread, actually, or core, whatever. That part we'll look into later on, how to really design the codes. But the point is simple, that if I consider it as some kind of task, then these two tasks are independent actually. They can be done in any order. So it does not matter whether I do this first or this first. I can do this first and then this, or I can first complete this and then this. Okay. So this part is clear, right? So this is called loop independent dependence.
Yes, sir.
This is clear? Yeah, but if you
Yes.
look here actually, but if you look into here, that is not so easy. It is not like this actually. Here there is a dependence within the loop itself. I mean, not only within the loop. I mean the dependence flows from one iteration to next iteration. So this is I minus one, and this is I. So it is not within the loop. So I cannot give one iteration to some other one code and the other iteration to some other code. Okay.
Yes, sir. It requires
So
previous value too. That's
yes,
like-
previous value from the previous iteration.
yes, yes.
Yes, so that's very important. So here it is within the same iteration. This is the keyword actually. It is within the same iteration, and here it flows from one iteration to next, and this is called loop carried actually. So the loop is actually carrying the dependence. That's why I call it loop carried dependence, and this is loop independent. So it does not really depend on the loop actually. Yes, within a given iteration there is dependence, but not on the loop. Okay. Now,
Hello, sir.
yes.
Sir, in the second part, if it is d of I minus 1 equals to a of I minus 1, so it will be a combination of both of them, or will it be something else?
No, so let us actually break it down. So let me see the what is happening in iteration one actually. So it is like A1 is equal to B1 plus C1. Okay, and then you have D1, which is equal to A. What is this? 0, right? Yes.
Sir,
Now, yes.
my question was if it was given that ai equals to bi plus ci and
Hmm.
followed by d of I minus 1 equals to a of I minus 1.
And it
So,
can be shifted in previous loop
uh,
also, right?
so it can be the both instructions can be treated parallelly. I mean differently.
Like we
So
can
I mean
shift
that yes,
this.
that can be shifted in.
Okay.
That can be shifted in the previous loop. Yeah, I mean, why
Okay.
we keep it in this loop? Yes. Okay, but here the actual point is actually a more relevant question in that direction is if I look into this in this way actually, like if I really break it into this, so A2 is equal to B2 plus C2, then you will see that D2 is actually A1. Okay, now if I want to give it to core 1, I cannot give it to core 2, this part, because the problem is this A1 is actually being calculated by core 1. I mean, so some other thread. So unless I make sure that this has been completed, I cannot start this operation. This part is clear, right?
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Sir, one
Yes.
more thing that if di equal to ai plus 1, that means it depends on future value. Then what will be the?
Yes. There is also so future that there is also. I mean, dependence. I'm coming there gradually. I'm going to. I have a lot of examples for you, so don't worry. Okay, I'm
Okay.
coming there. Okay.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Oh, yeah, so the overall picture is clear, like the basic picture is clear to all of you, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, perfect. Now let's look into more examples. It will get clear actually. This is a very important part actually. Okay, now let us look into this actually. Loop carried dependence. So, let's say I have this question for you. So can this loop be parallelized? That's my question. So first, let us look into the approach. I mean, how should we approach these kind of things actually? Because as a programmer, you will look into you will get different kinds of loops actually. So how do you figure out? So the first approach which needs to be taken is like look into the pattern for some iteration. So what I will do is like simply I will take iteration number 1. So I is equal to 1, and then I will see what is happening. So what is happening? A1 is equal to A1 plus A0. Then I will write I is equal to 2. Then I will write A2 is equal to, if I make a mistake, just let me know. A2 is plus A1. Yeah. Similarly, I is equal to 3. So here A3 is equal to A3 plus A2. And maybe I will just look into the last one, which is I is equal to n minus 1, because it is going to n less than n. So I n minus 1. So that is A n minus 1 is equal to n minus 1 plus A n minus 2. Okay. Now, can this loop be parallelized?
No.
No. Exactly, because we can see clearly there is a dependence. I mean, unless you do this, you cannot do this because you have to use it here. Unless you do this, you cannot do this because you have to use it here. So yes, there is a clear dependence. So the answer is it cannot be parallelized easily. Okay. So this part is clear to all of you.
Yes, sir.
This part is clear. Yeah. So the more important, I mean, why I keep it like this, because I am more interested in I mean, developing this skill actually. What is the approach? Once you get it right, I mean, whatever problem you get, you will be able to solve. So the approach is look into the pattern for some iterations and then make a knowledgeable decision. Okay. Now let's go forward. So this is a very important slide actually. How to detect dependencies. So first thing is look carefully how each variable is used within a iteration. So in a given iteration, so I'm talking about loop dependencies actually. This the whole slide is about loops now. Okay. So look carefully how each variable, so there can be many variables, is used within a iteration. Is the variable only read and not written? If yes, no dependence. Once again, let us try to understand. Is the variable only read? So you are just reading something, but not writing. So suppose you are just reading B, but you are not changing B inside a loop. Then it's fine. There is no dependence. You don't even need to worry about dependency. If it is just read actually, but for each variable which is written within a iteration, if there is a variable which you are trying to write actually, find out whether there is any accesses in other iterations than the current. So for example, here if you look into the previous example, you are writing a3, okay, or let's say in this iteration I equal to 2, you are writing a2, and then you find out that yes, a2 is being accessed by here actually in other iterations. So it is not only in I equal to 2, it is also there in I equal to 3. So that's the critical point actually. So whenever each variable is written, any variable is written, find out whether there is any access in other iterations than the current. If yes, then dependencies are present. Okay, these 3 points are clear. Okay, now the other 2 important points. Each element is assigned by at most one iteration. Okay, so when you are assigning an element inside a loop, and no iteration reads elements assigned by any other iteration. Okay, so these are another way is like just make sure that these two holds true. Then more or less it's almost guaranteed that you will be able to figure out the whether the dependencies are there or not. So for no dependencies, if these two get satisfied, then there are no dependencies. That is, each element is assigned by at most one iteration. Two iterations are not assigning the same element, and no iteration reads elements assigned by any other iteration. Okay, now let's look into this. Can this loop be parallelized?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so this is yeah, this is the same question. AI is equal to I minus 1. So can this be parallelized?
Sir, here
Yes.
Yes,
I
sir. Yes.
is sir.
Yeah.
Like for
Okay.
odd values and even values.
Yes. So why again? If you simply look into these two questions, it may look like these are the same question, but these are not the same questions actually. What is changing here is this part actually. I plus is equal to 2. So again, as usual, we have to just look into the pattern. So if I look into the pattern, it will look like A1 is equal to A1 plus how much? A0. And then the second one is uh, A3, because it's plus 2. A3 is equal to A3 plus A2. And then A5 is equal to A5 plus A4. So you can clearly see that these two are satisfied. So each element is assigned by at most one iteration. So A1, A3, A5, everyone is just getting assigned by only one iteration. Okay. No iteration reads element assigned by any other iteration. So if I look into A3, it does not read anything. It just reads A2, which is not actually getting assigned by any other iteration. So both the conditions are satisfied. This part is clear to all of you?
Yes, sir.
Okay, perfect.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now let's get to the next one. Can this loop be parallelized? This question.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes.
But yeah, so we'll just simply do it a couple of times. A1 is equal to A1 plus A1 plus n by 2. Okay, then A2 is equal to A2 plus A2 plus n by 2. And how far I will go?
N by 2 minus 1.
N by 2 minus 1 is equal to A n by 2 minus 1 plus A n by 2 minus 1 plus just let me know if I do a mistake. Yeah. So can this loop be parallelized?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
This can be parallelized. Yes. So the answer is yes. Okay. Now what about this loop? The second question.
No, cannot be.
No, sir.
How cannot be?
It cannot be parallelized. The moment you'll write the last statement, you will realize that this will become A n by 2 n by 2, yes, A n by 2 is equal to A n by 2 because it is running to n by 2 plus A how much is that n by 2,
Yeah.
N answer.
yeah, that's correct, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so why it cannot be parallelized? Can someone tell me?
Sir, first and last iterations are interrupting each other. They're dependent.
Yes, exactly. So these are dependent. So if you get this kind of problem, another thing what can be do is like if you feel it difficult in visualizing in terms of n, simply take some value of n is equal to 10. So here, if you just take n is equal to say 10, so then you can see the last iteration. I can just write the last iteration. So last iteration will be what will be the it will go up to how much? N by 2. So that is 5. A5 is equal to A5 plus A5 plus how much?
I-
5. Yeah, so that's 10. Yeah. So what will happen here? What is the problem?
Out
Sir,
of the
in zeroth iteration, A0 equal to A0 plus A5. So A5,
Exactly. Now you're getting the point. So if I compare the zeroth iteration, so that is A0 is equal to A0 plus how much?
A5.
A5. Exactly. So now you can see that in the last iteration, you are going to calculate A5 and actually you are using that in the first iteration itself. And that is never going to happen here actually, because here the loop is only going up to this. I is less than n minus n by 2, but here it is actually equal to. Okay. So this part is clear to all of you?
Yes, sir.
Yes. Okay. Perfect. Now let's go ahead. Okay. What about this? Once again, I mean, we know the approach, so I will simply write it
No,
for a
sir.
couple of iterations. I is equal to 1. So
no, sir.
A1 is equal to A. How much is that? A is 0. If I make a mistake, just let me know. A0 plus 1. I is equal to 2. That is A2 is equal to A1 plus how much? A1 plus 2. Yeah, I is equal to 3, A3 plus A2 plus 3. So let me put the values here. So A0 is equal to 0. This is given. A0 is equal to 0. So 0 plus 1 is equal to 1. Then A1, A1 is equal to 1. So I'm going to get it from here. 1 plus 2, which is equal to 3. And then A3 is equal to A2. So now I am going, this is A2. So I'm going to get the A2 from here, which is 3 plus 3, which is 6. Okay. And what about I is equal to 4? A4 is equal to A3 plus 4. How much is that? 6 plus
4. 10.
yeah. So what's going on? Is there a mistake somewhere?
No, sir.
No, sir.
Okay. So what is the pattern?
It is formula of y.
Huh?
We can get formula from I only. It is not
Exactly.
depend on others.
Exactly. Yeah. So can I reframe the question once again? I mean, can I ask the question once again? Can this loop be parallelized?
Yes.
Yeah. What I have to do?
AI equals to I into I
I
plus
plus
1 by 2.
I plus 1 by 2. Now you can see, I mean, any core can do independently. I mean, I can give just throw because there is no dependence here. It just depends on which loop you are. So AI equal to I plus 1 by 2. So you take, if you use the same statement, I is equal to 4, you will get I 4 into 5 divided by 2. So that is 10. And you are also getting 10 from here. Okay. So in this case, it can be removed actually. You got this idea?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so these techniques actually you have to build actually by yourself, because these are the things which compilers cannot do. I mean, in some cases actually compilers can do actually for you. But these are the things where programmer needs to think actually, that can I remove the dependence in some way. Okay, what about this?
Yes. In parallel.
This can be
Parallel.
this is not a so simple question actually. This is a tricky question because you exactly don't know what is going on here.
Yes, it cannot be unique always.
If ID is a
Exactly.
permutation, then we can.
Yes,
The
yes.
point is there are hidden things here, right? So so when there are certain information which is hidden, I mean, you exactly don't know what might happen inside that. So you cannot simply say that it can be parallelized, right? So this is like difficult to say. This question, the answer is it's difficult to tell at this point. You got it, right?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Okay, now let's get into the next one. Yeah. Can we remove dependencies in the following cases? Is there false dependencies? So if you look into this case 1, so sum equal to A1 plus 1, B1 equal to sum into C1, then sum is equal to again A2 plus 1, and B2 is equal to sum into C2. So is there a dependence? First question.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Dependency.
Yeah. Now the second question, can we remove this dependency easily?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
How
yes.
can you remove this? Yeah, how can you remove?
Replacing sum by a plus a1 plus 1 and other sum is equal to a2 plus 1. Sorry.
So what we can do is simply rename
should
this
write
sum. Yeah, so you can
using
simply write sum 1. So this sum you replace by sum 1, this sum actually, okay, and this sum you replace by sum 2, and then you are done. You got it, right, all of you?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So then they will become independent actually. I mean, so this can be done independently. Okay. Now what about this? Can these two be parallelized? Okay. So this is a tricky question. This is for you to figure out. So this is an assignment for you. Yeah, so the point is, like, gradually things will get difficult. So I have explained you what is dependency, how some of the dependencies can be removed. Now you really need to think, actually, because you are going to really get into this kind of situations when you actually start designing your codes. So very important to think follow the approach. Actually, by following the approach, I mean you have to keep these points in mind. Then only you can figure it out. First, whether there is dependency, and if there is dependency, that's a skill. I mean, how to remove dependency. Okay. Now, if I have to summarize what we have discussed till now, so statement order must not matter. First point, it can be executed in whatever order. Statement must not have dependencies if we want to parallelize. Some dependencies can be removed. For example, we have already seen couple of cases how those can be removed. Some dependencies may not be obvious. I mean, you might feel that it is not there, but there is actually dependence. So again, the point is, like, look very carefully. Now, let us look into this example. So this is called eliminating dependence by scalar expansion or privatization. Now, this is a technique which we call private variables. Now, I mean, generally when you write codes, I mean, typically you till now you have been using global variables. I mean, variables, because you are writing serial code, it does not matter. I mean, because there is only one thread. But when you will be doing multi-threaded programming, then there will be private variables which only one thread can touch. Actually, we'll come to there later, but let us understand this concept, and then privatization will be easy to follow, actually. So can this can we eliminate dependence in this case? So is there a dependence here in this particular code? Is
It's
there a dependence here in this?
loop independent dependency.
Yes.
What kind of dependence is there? Can you just let me know where is the dependence?
Sir, at bi equal to t.
Bi is equal to t, and here you have t is equal to ai, right?
Yes.
Yes, AI is equal to BI directly.
Yeah. So now the point
AI
is
B is equal to D.
yeah. So the point is, how can I remove this dependence? How can I be absolutely sure that I write the code in such a way that I'm completely satisfied that there is no dependence?
Swapping two variables.
Hmm?
Swapping two variable.
Okay. So in this kind of situation, the technique which we use is called scalar expansion. So typically what we do is, like, we make this, we expand this. So you make it like ti is equal to ai, and then ai is equal to bi, and then bi is equal to ti. Now, if you look into this code, does it look better?
Yes, sir.
Yes. Okay. So basically, we'll see in future lectures that how the same idea can be translated to the privatization techniques. We'll come there. So this is going to be a very important technique, actually, in future. Okay. Now let's go to the next
Sir,
part.
but what's the benefit of doing this? Like, what means,
What?
what's the benefit of doing such thing?
Now the point here is that this t, okay. Suppose you are trying to do it, you are working on multiple iterations. You are working on multiple iterations. You are simultaneously working on I is equal to 1 and I is equal to 5. Now, what will happen if you try to do on multiple iterations here? You got it? So
What, sir?
T is going to T is getting, so suppose there is you are working parallelly. So first T will get A1, okay, and before you go to these statements, I mean here the T can be updated by the this loop actually, I equal to 5, because I equal to 5 is also going parallelly. So this T will now become A equal to 5.
Okay, sir, got it, got it.
You got it, right? Because we are talking about parallelization actually. So the point is like we are talking about, can we get this loop and run all those iterations parallel? Now, if we do this change here, then you can see they are independent. I mean, so it doesn't matter who is doing what. Because
Yes,
now
sir.
you got it, right?
Yes, sir. We are maintaining a local copy of each T. Like that.
Exactly. So this technique is called scalar expansion, and in future we'll see how we can use private variables actually, which are thread private basically. We'll go there gradually. Okay. Now, couple of other important things before we go ahead. That is related to loop interchange and loop fusion. Loop interchange and loop. Do you know about these techniques, loop interchange and loop fusion? Have you some idea about loop interchange and loop fusion? Okay, fine. So then we'll cover it from the basics actually. Okay. So loop fusion is basically combining two loops into a single loop. So let me first write down what is loop fusion. Loop fusion is combining two loops into a single loop. Okay. And we'll see the reason. I'm not writing the reason now. We'll see the reason later. And the second is loop distribution. Let me write it loop distribution. So instead of interchange, let me write loop distribution. Okay. So here what happens is it is opposite of fusion. Okay. So what you are doing is actually here you are combining two loops into a single loop. Here you will take a single loop and then distribute it into two different loops. Okay. Okay. Now let me give you an example. Again, the reason will come later. I mean, why these are important. So let me first look into a code one. Actually, let me write a code one for you. So for I is equal to 0, I less than n, a simple one, I plus plus, and let me write first let me write another loop which is j is equal to 0, j less than n, j plus plus. Again, two loops are required to understand this concept. And now let me introduce a statement here, ai minus 1 is equal to bi. Yes, and here let me introduce a statement, cj is equal to aj. Okay. Now the point is, can this loop be parallelized? Can this code be parallelized? So my question is, can this code be parallelized? Yeah. So what is the answer?
It can be if we merge both the loops.
Yeah. So the answer is simple. Yes, because we have learned that it can be parallelized. Because do you see any dependence as such? Do you see any dependence here as such?
No, sir.
No. Okay. Now, okay, so that's perfect. Okay. Now let us apply this technique, what we discussed. So let's first do loop fusion. So the fusion is combining two loops. So I have two loops here. So this is my loop 1, this is my loop 2 into a single loop. So that means what I want to do, I want to combine this. Okay, so for I'm just writing it quickly. So there may be a little bit error here, but let us just do it quickly. I plus plus. Okay, so I'm just simply writing ai minus 1 is equal to bi. Okay, and this is ci. Yeah, ci is equal to ai. Yeah. Are they going to do the same thing?
No, sir.
Yeah. Where is the issue?
AI is assigned B, so we should write B. We should write CI equal to BI plus 1.
Ci is equal to bi.
Yes, DI plus 1, like BI plus 1.
Okay, but let's not get into this part. Okay, let's assume that otherwise these two are almost same, right? So ai, so that doubt came because of this ai minus 1. Let's assume that they are same. Let's assume we can make a small change and it will become same. Okay, now the point is, let's assume that we can write it in this way. So I'm saying that I can fuse these two and they are almost doing the same thing because ci is equal to ai. That is what was happening here. So no issue here. Yes, here because I started from here, but let's assume that they are doing the same thing. Now what's the benefit here actually if I do it like this? If I fuse it, what's the benefit? Can you tell me the benefit and the disadvantage?
Sir, it will take less time as we are running double loops above. So the time will be less.
Time will be less. Oh, why less?
Sir, we ran two loops there, and here it is only one. So
No. That you cannot tell because here you are n, here also n, so total 2n operations. I mean in that way. So here also 2n because you have n, but you have two statements here. So order is same. Number of instructions operations are same. You got it right?
yes, sir, yes.
Yeah. Not in that way. You cannot look into in that way. So I'm saying they are both achieving the same thing actually because semantically it looks like there is a small error, but otherwise let's assume that they are absolutely doing the same thing. Now my question is there a benefit and is there a disadvantage of doing this?
Sir, disadvantage because there is a parallelism happen, but in this loop not parallelism happen.
Yes, that's a very good answer. That here the main disadvantage is it cannot be parallelized, right?
Yes, sir.
All of you agree?
Sir,
Yes, sir.
Yeah. The loop, you again look into the loop actually. This I, you look into the I counter. What is happening? You can see here, right? These two you can see.
But sir, it can be removed now. Like CI is equal to simply BI.
Ci is equal to?
Simply we can write BI.
No, Ci, how can you write Di? Ci is equal to Bi.
CI is equal to BI plus 1. Yeah.
Ci is equal to
Because
Bi.
sir, A of I will be ultimately B of I plus 1 only. So that is what he is saying.
You are saying Ci is going to be Bi.
B of I plus 1.
B of I plus 1. Okay, so what if I replace Bi with something? Let's say some function or something. Let's assume that there is a dependence. But here that dependence was not there, right? Okay, let's make another assumption. So the point what I'm trying to say is that here, if you look into these two statements, here the answer was very simple. Can this code be parallelized? Yes, because as such, they are two independent things. I mean, they can be parallelized. but here it cannot be parallelized simply because there can be, if I fuse somehow, that that dependence can come into picture actually if I try to fuse it in this way. Now the point is there a benefit out of this? If I do this, is there a benefit attached to it?
Sir, in terms of cache,
Yes.
because
What is the
AI
benefit?
and AI minus 1 are adjacent.
Exactly. So the benefit is that here there is a better cache locality. Here is a better cache locality. Okay. And what is the disadvantage here? What about the locality part here? You can always assume n is much greater than 1.
We have to, sir, bring back A again for second loop in case.
Exactly, because here what you are doing is like you are first doing going from I is equal to 0 to n is much greater than n. So the complete whatever was there in the cache will be filled with something else. And again when you are coming back to get a 0, you will not get it into the cache. So here the disadvantage is the worst locality. Okay. Okay, so the main goal of giving this small example is that what is the philosophically, how should we look into it actually? What is loop fusion? So loop fusion is basically you can combine two loops and get it done by a single loop. Loop distribution is like if I give you this loop and then you figure out that it cannot be parallelized, then what you can do is like you can distribute this fused loop into two separate loops, and then you can bring back parallelism. So that's the point actually. Overall, I mean, there are some issues with this small example which I just gave you, but that can be figured out. I mean, I can always get another better example, but overall the idea is clear to all of you.
Sir, but we can achieve cache locality and the parallelism in the second loop also, like replace Ci is equal to Bi plus 1.
No, that is what I'm telling, that I can give you a better example. For this particular example, I mean, there are ways, but I'm saying that there can be other examples where you cannot do that actually, right?
Okay.
Okay, so I'm just giving you the important the concepts actually. So my intention is to give some simple examples to get the concepts clear. So the concept is that, so let me write down the concept, or here actually I can write it here. The reason is already there. So the point is, if you combine two loops into a single loop, this can improve locality. Okay, combine loops into yeah, this can improve locality. Okay, and as you said, I am also taking your feedback that it can also parallelism can also be introduced. I mean, not always, but yes, I mean, if you can think, in some cases it can be. But what about the loop distribution? Loop distribution, it will always increase parallelism, can increase parallelism. Okay, can increase parallelism, but here the locality will decrease actually. So here the worst locality, the locality will deteriorate actually, worst locality. Okay, so this part is clear, like the main idea, this part is clear to all of you? This part is clear to all of you?
Yes.
Yeah, so what I'm once again I'll summarize. Can turn a non parallelizable loop into a parallelizable loop into a parallelizable loop. Okay, So this is a good summary of dependence. I mean, there can be much more complicated examples, and that you will figure out eventually. So that completes our understanding of dependencies. Okay, now I will just give you some examples of serial code optimizations, because we are doing till now in the lab also we are still now doing serial code optimization. So let's just take a couple of examples. So suppose I have these two cases, case A and case B. Which one you will choose and why? Yeah, can someone answer this question quickly?
Sir, first one.
First one, okay. First one, why?
Sir, because if there are multiple threads, then they can directly exit.
No. Just a minute. Just a minute. First, let us look into the title of what we are doing. Serial code.
Okay.
Okay, now don't get into parallel code now. I'm just talking about simple optimizations for serial code, and these ideas can be translated to parallel code eventually. Okay.
Okay.
So just think, yes. Now answer is still A, but why?
Sir, because flag is not set to false is if complex function a of I is greater than threshold. So if it is set to true, the value doesn't change for any of the further iterations. So we don't have to go for further loop. So we choose A.
Yeah. So what is the lesson, takeaway lesson from here? If I have to write a lesson, so the point is, what lesson do I take from these two examples? So lesson for optimization. That's what the summary actually I will tell. So you are given two choices and you told that you will choose A. So what is the lesson? So the answer is correct, A. But what is the lesson which we are going to take from here?
We could avoid unnecessary iterations.
Exactly. Do less work. Okay. We could avoid unnecessary iterations. Yes. Do less work. So that's the first lesson. Okay. So always make sure that you are not doing unnecessary work. Okay. Second one. Which one you will choose? First, both are doing the same thing, right? Case A. So this is my case A actually. Sorry. Yeah, this is written here. Case A and this is case B. Yeah. So both are doing the same thing, right? All of you agree that both of are doing the same thing, case A and case B?
Yes.
Yeah. Now which one? Which one you will choose, case A or case B? And I can tell you there's going to be huge difference. Not
Case B.
small. It can case
So
B.
case
Okay.
B.
Why case B?
Because in
Because
case when we do a power with a float, it can be expensive, I think.
Yeah, but yes, that the answer is true, the case B. But can someone tell me why?
sir, the
It would have to eventually interpret.
Yes. So actually, what happens if you look into this case A? So eventually, what happens is like this will be interpreted like this B asterisk asterisk 2. I mean, power of 2 actually is basically
It would have to eventually call that thing only. So
yeah,
to
it
make
gets
sense,
implemented by something like this actually. It gets implemented by something like this. So finally, it turns out like this actually. Exponential 2 log b actually inside actually this is what is happening. So this is called actually this optimization is called strength reduction. So you have to be very careful that you do not use expensive operation. So this is a very expensive operation. Okay, this is an expensive operation. Expensive operation. Why it is an expensive operation? Because this is how it is finally gets executed. First you take exponential, then you do this, and these functions are very expensive. So what are expensive operations? Like trigonometric kind of thing, and then exponential. So pipelines are also very large actually for this kind of operations. Okay, so try to avoid this kind of operations wherever possible in your code, and this can give you significant improvement, sometimes 3-4 times
Sir,
actually.
what if
Yes.
2 is integer?
What?
What if 2 is integer? Then
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. I can make it 2. Yeah, it doesn't matter. It will still get executed in this. The point is how it gets executed. So you are using an exponential and then a log is.
So
Okay.
can you go in previous slide? I didn't understood the code.
Yes. So here the important point was after this condition, you are making an exit here. And here, if you look into that actually, so I mean, you are still keep on doing it.
Got it.
Okay, so the lesson here, the lesson is do less work. Similarly, can you suggest me a good lesson for this slide? What is the lesson?
Do operations which are less expensive.
Exactly.
While
Avoid
interpreting.
expensive. Yes. Avoid expensive, and this can sometimes improve your code by more than 100%. I mean, 2-3 times improvement you will get. So because these pipelines are very deep actually, exponential, log, and all this, and as we know, I mean, always this multiplication and I mean these additions, they are always very attractive in that way. Okay. What about this? Which one you will use?
Second one.
Second one. Okay. Why?
It does not have to compute every time.
Yes.
Exactly. Again, the same philosophy. I mean, do less work. Okay. What about this?
Second one.
Second one. Okay. Why? First, you have to tell me both are doing the same thing or not.
Yes, sir. Same computation, and B would be
First
better.
one, first case is
by 2.
Which one you will choose? Okay, both are doing same. Which one you will choose?
B.
Yes. Why?
Because it is avoiding one if else condition and one multiplication also. So that's why probably.
Okay. Any other
But sir,
benefit in
case A is
every
best
time
locality
in
is
case
low.
A, every time we have to check which sign we have to take and then make the computation. Here we have divided the loops in such a way that we have already know in which case plus or minus sign would be coming. So we are
Right.
avoiding the if else conditions.
Okay, that makes sense. This actually you should implement and also understand what's going on. Okay, so that logic is fine, but is there any other benefit in B?
Case A takes n square iterations while B take n into n plus 1 by 2.
Excuse me.
Number of iterations in B would be less as compared to A.
Number of iterations, yes. Number of iterations in A will be less compared to
No, B would
A.
be less.
Now in B would be less, yes. In B would be less, yes. Because here you can see it is J plus 1, right?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So you should. So the point is simple. You should be very careful while writing code. So because you cannot just take these things for granted. So the point is you can do the same thing in several ways, but you must be skilled in choosing the best way, because whatever examples I am showing you, you are finally getting the same answer. But it is the programmer's skill to really know how to write a good code, because performance matters actually a lot. Okay.
Sir, in case A, it
Yes.
is better cache locality, isn't it?
Yes, actually there are many issues actually. So I am not going to reveal everything now, but yeah, that's another important point someone has raised. So I will suggest that I will share these slides, write these codes and see how much gain you are getting. Is it 10, 5-10% I'm talking about? I'm really talking about something like of the order of 100%, 50% gain in one compared to the other. Okay. Okay. Because one thing is like just discussing, but another thing is really coding and understanding why that is happening. Okay, I will give one more example and then we'll go to the next topic. Yes, what about this? First, make sure that both are doing the same thing or not.
So we'll go with case A.
This will be
Case A would
case
be
A. Why
better.
case A?
Sir, in case A, first of all, this both would be same, and at the same time, there is cache locality. So Ci and Ci plus 1 means I and I plus 1 would be accessed easily. And at the same time, outer loop, we are running it at the iterations of I equals to I plus 2. So we are there is half the number of iterations for the outer loop.
Okay.
So case A should be better.
So total number of computations are same in both the cases or not?
Yes, same.
Same, sir.
Total number of computations are same, right?
Yes.
Yeah, because here it is n square. Here it is actually you have 2 actually. So here you have only single statement. Okay. So you told case B, right, or case A? Which one did you told?
I told case A.
Yeah, case A. Yeah. So what is the main reason for case A to give you better performance?
Because in the outer loop we are incrementing the loop by 2 times, so we are actually outer loop is executed the half number of times in case A than in case B, and inside there is also cache locality, so Ci and Ci plus 1 can be easily accessed. There won't be much problem to access that.
Right. So do you know what this technique is called? What this technique?
In the case A, it will be AJI, right?
Yes, sir.
Which one? Can you please repeat?
Ci is equal to Ci plus AJI. It is written IJ.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Yes, I guess yes. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. That looks like a small mistake. Yes. So the point is this. Do you know what this technique is called?
Sir, loop unrolling?
Loop?
Unrolling.
Yes. Loop unrolling. Yes. Very important technique for improving performance and also equally useful in parallel programming. Okay. Okay, so there are many such cases which can be looked into details, but for me, the most important thing is like to give you the important lessons actually. So, couple of lessons which we have already understood is that do less work whenever possible, avoid expensive operations, okay, because multiplication and additions are the fastest way to compute, okay. Replace expensive functions by table lookup. Another kind of optimization strategy is try to use table lookup actually. That is a very good technique actually. Explore whether data is close to CPU. So we have done a lot of examples, catch locality and all in the previous block matrix multiplication also. So this is very important, whether data is close to the CPU or not. Elimination of common sub expressions, okay. I mean, if not required, that eliminate. Avoid branches actually, okay. So we did not discuss too much about branch prediction. If I have time, I will also discuss this. So it is it is preferable to avoid branches actually. And support the compiler to understand and optimize your code. Yes, because compilers nowadays do some kind of auto optimization, but you have to write your code in such a way that compiler really understands, so that it can give you the required help in optimizing. Okay, up to this point it is clear.
Sir, can you explain the last example, like why A is better?
Yes, yes. Okay, just a minute. Yes, sure. It's getting